Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Edge of Reality TV. I'm Willie Hassel, and this, of course, is the lovely Lynn Nickerson.
Good evening, Willie. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
You're doing
Yeah,
good?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Beautiful day.
Well, it
How
was
can
gorgeous
you not be
today.
doing good? You know?
Truly.
Yeah. And not only that, but we got a great guest tonight.
We
too.
do.
And you know, my printer decided not to cooperate, so I had to handwrite. And
So
let's
you may
just-
stumble, is that
and
what you're
let's just
saying?
hope that I can read my writing.
Okay.
So-
We'll be patient.
Okay, I may have to do it 2 or 3 times to get it right. You know? So Dennis Stone is the president of America's Stonehenge. He graduated from Daniel Webster College in 1977 with a degree in aviation management and was a full-time commercial pilot for over 35 years before retiring in 2016. America's Stonehenge, opened by his father, Robert Stone, in 1958. Dennis has been involved with the site for most of his life. He has always had a fascination with archaeology and archaeoastronomy. He has taken numerous courses and traveled extensively to ancient sites both in the U.S. and internationally. So let's
And,
welcome.
well, I was just going to say, is it mentioned there that America's Stonehenge is a megalithic site, which is really important? Well, I just said it, so
just
there
did.
you go.
You just did. So welcome to the show, Dennis.
Well, thank you for having me this evening, Willie.
Welcome, Dennis. It's
And
always,
Lynn, thank you.
always fun having you on. So now that I made that point, I think it's really important that people know that there's a bunch of rocks there, but they're important rocks.
Yeah, they're not just any rocks.
No, they're not.
Cool rocks.
They've been there for a few years. So what I wanted to do was I'd like you to tell us about the events that you've got coming up, and that the place is very family friendly, so that you've got something for everybody. So if you want to tell our audience about why they should come for fun, but also the significance of it all, which we'll get into tonight, especially in the first half.
Well, we have
So-
a couple of different events. One will be the Fall Equinox, of course. That's coming up very shortly. And
Yeah.
we've been doing that since the 1970s, I think. They'll have a drumming circle that day,
Neat.
which is kind of neat.
Maybe we can go to that.
And that's usually very, very popular. We've been doing a few of those over the last couple of years. And I think it's going to be Saturday. Right after that, we're going to be having a ceremony. Now, they usually put the ceremony on the actual day, but it's not. It's a weekday this year.
Yeah.
So on the weekend, we'll have the ceremony. So we'll have both going. They'll be on our website, stonehengeusa.com. And we have a couple other things going on in October as far as paranormal. We have a special event. I believe it's on the 15th, a Saturday. And that's going to be kind of an all-nighter, I think, up there. Well, at least to midnight, I think it is.
Oh, the ghost hunt.
Investigation.
Yeah. It'll
Julie
be
Griffin, is it?
Yeah, Scott Allen.
Oh, Scott Allen is
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and Julie Flynn.
we
And
know
good friends of yours. Yeah.
Oh, and Julie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've done a radio show on the site. They visited the site, and then they suggested doing this back a couple months ago. So
That's a great idea.
so having you up there is really nice, and having them up there too.
Yeah.
And then we have another filming coming up Saturday with people too. Don Christopher he'll be doing a filming up there on this Saturday, actually.
Oh, is that going to be one of his TV shows?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes to like 20 community TV down south of Boston,
Right.
near Quincy, I
Yeah.
think.
Dedham
Quincy.
and
Quincy.
Quincy
TV.
area, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of
Good
nice.
coverage.
Yeah, so we got some things going on up there, and then we'll have the winter solstice, and then we'll have a snowshoeing going on, I think, if we have snow this year. And
Hopefully we won't have.
yeah, the shoveling's,
sorry.
the shoveling's getting harder and harder, of course, as we get older. But we do candlelight snowshoeing when we have the weather too on Saturday nights, which is very nice. Another thing we're thinking of doing in the future, probably won't do it this fall, is probably stargazing, maybe on like Friday nights.
Oh, yeah?
In October would be nice because the clear skies, no mosquitoes. We'll talk about some of the astronomical alignments and some of the constellations that may have
I
played
think
a
that's a
part.
good idea. Very
And
educational.
don't forget the UFOs that you're going to see flying over too.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, that'll be part of it, And New Hampshire's such a hot spot. I think it's number 5 in the country for that kind of thing. And
Have you seen much from there? From
I
the
have
hill?
from my front window last February, looking towards the Manchester, New Hampshire airport, where I began my flying lessons back in '74. But
Yeah, you mentioned that one.
yeah, that was weird. Yeah, and I was just watching, thinking it was a landing light going into Manchester, coming in from the west, and
Yeah.
it was intense. It was mid-February, 9 o'clock at night, roughly. And all of a sudden that bright light, maybe 2 seconds, went straight to the ground instantaneously, And I've seen TV shows where they go up or horizontally, but this one went right to the ground. If somebody was in the control tower looking in that direction, or their approach control radar, and Nashua Center is not too far from there, that controls basically all of the traffic around Boston. It's one of the 21 centers across the United States. They would have seen something on their primary radar, So I looked at the MUFON website. I didn't see any updates. It was kind of not updated, and I don't know if anybody else saw it, but it really caught my attention. I mean, I flew for 42 years, and I saw a lot of stuff.
So that didn't show up on their radar then?
I don't know. I should have called the tower
know.
up. I used to have a number years ago. You could actually talk to the controllers. Hey, can we come up and take a look? But since 9/11, a lot of that's changed. For security reasons.
Yeah.
But you used to be able to say, "Yeah, I'm a pilot. Do you have time for a pilot to come up there and kind of an orientation thing?" It's kind of nice. And then sometimes they'll fly in our cockpit. But whatever it was instantaneously to the ground. And I did talk to Kathleen Marden about it, Betty Hill's niece. So the only thing she ever heard of was a reptilian or maybe Skinwalker Ranch, And I think she was at the UFO Fest.
Yeah,
which I
she
missed.
was. She spoke.
Yeah, we missed it. Was the weekend before last or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, we got back from Iceland and we didn't get to it, and I wanted to go there and say hi to her again, Because she used to come to our place back in the 70s with Betty,
Oh.
And Betty came up many, many times. Starting almost 50 years ago, she visited us.
What was Kathleen saying about Skinwalker Ranch in relation to what you saw?
Yeah, apparently something she said would go, this basically, they say the UAPs or UFOs will go in space, they'll go in air, they'll go in water, But do they go into the ground?
Oh, I see.
And
You were
that's the
saying it
thing,
did go straight down.
This went straight down. If you saw the one over Israel, over the rock, the dome, taking a number of years, this bright light comes down very slowly. It stops, it hovers, and then it shoots up instantaneously. Mine did that down into the earth. South of the Manchester Airport, it has some ponds, some streams. There's no great body of water there.
I was going to mention that it could have gone into a deep pond. I mean, something like Lake Winnipesaukee is very deep.
There's not too much there, but if it was
Lake
Winnipesaukee.
Massapequa, that's close.
It would have been, Massapequa would have been more
Wrong
to the
direction.
right. Yeah, wrong direction. It was south of the airport, I'd say. You can look at you can go Google map it, and pull up all of that. It was just quite amazing. And then my wife and I coming back from an ice cream thing back 2019 over at Kingston, New Hampshire, where Betty actually grew up, and Kathleen Marden did too, right across the street. We were coming back from Memories Ice Cream, and it's very, very nice, and we had eaten at the Lake Bolton's Landing. But as we came back through the intersection of 111 and 125, we looked to the right, both of us. My wife's not particularly interested in UFOs. A little bit, not too much though, a little healthy skepticism. And we both saw something in the sky, and it was green light, unfortunately. If it was a red light, we could have sat there and looked at it. So we had to go through the intersection. We couldn't stop. We never saw it again, but to me, it would look like something like the size of a KC-135, the aerial refuelers out of Pease Air Force Base. They replaced them now with 767s. But the thing was darker than the Air National Guard gray. It was a darker color. It seemed to be very sharp. The 707 basically is the plane I'm talking about. It's graceful, it's got curved lines and everything. This seemed to be more sharper in its edges and everything, but it was pointed down. If it was an airplane, it would hit the ground in about 3 seconds, and it didn't seem to be moving. And that was probably just about a year and a half before I saw the other thing, in Manchester. So those two things are very recent. What I saw flying for 42 years and 30,000 hours were things that were not encounters of the third kind. You couldn't really, they weren't close encounters, These things are way off. I did a lot of night flying with UPS back in the 80s, and I flew with guys that saw things in Vietnam, a lot of Vietnam and North and Korean war pilots, But in the plane, sometimes you see a light, it goes off, they said, that's interesting. Did it go behind a cloud? They shut off the landing light. Or is it something, something different? But on the ground, I saw most of including one in Manchester in 1966. We saw the same kind of bright light I saw out of my window, but it stayed there as we went around on 293 around the airport. We could see it in the station wagon. And my friend that was with me, his dad was an air route traffic controller for the FAA too, and he had some interesting stories too.
I bet he did.
But the next day on the radio stations, they were talking about this thing that we saw. So I don't think we misidentified, Venus or a helicopter or anything like that. We were pretty like, wow. So those are my 3 UAP, UFO things.
The one that you saw that was like dark and sort of a dark gray, what was the shape of that one?
Yeah, it was kind of hard to see because we saw it for probably for just a couple seconds. So, as far as getting a good visual on it and a good description of it, all I knew is this, whatever I saw like that, the only thing that crossed my mind later was somebody doing an aerial balloon advertising, but it didn't look like any of those. I've seen those. In fact, we saw one just north of there. It was for a car dealership, a big, kind of a white colored blimp. They tether them. This is not like
Nothing
that.
like
They're
that,
not
no.
No, this is very dark color, darker than the Air Force gray for sure. And again, it seemed to be at an angle like this. And I wish, again, we went to MUFON. I couldn't find anything on it. Maybe they just didn't update it,
Yeah, sometimes the people take a while to make a report. That's
That could have
another
been it too,
thing.
yeah. And I didn't make my report, so
Yeah.
I should have probably.
But you don't know whether it was like triangular or even shaped like an airplane. You couldn't really catch the shape of it at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go forth and
Okay.
claim any particular shapes to it, other than I remember the angle of it, and I remember it was angular in design,
Yeah.
more than like a 707 or anything like that, and darker. And the only reason I thought 7, because Pease Air Force Base is located in that direction, probably about 15 miles up the road.
Well, there's something that's well known is that there's a lot of UFO sightings over military bases and installations, number one, and number two, over ancient sites. And L.A.
Yeah.
Marzulli brought up the same thing, that you see a lot of UFOs. There's an author, Artie Six Killer Clark, and she investigated what she interviewed all kinds of Hispanic and Native American people in relation to various ancient sites like Teotihuacan and so forth. And they all had stories about spaceships coming down to the tops of these ruins and temples and step pyramids.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's supposed to be quite a connection there. So it's not in our imagination.
No, there have been a number of sightings in our area because the incident at Exeter in 1965, and then
I remember.
one of our visitors, she sent me a video, and I meant to get back to her. She's from Massachusetts. She was driving up towards our site, and right over our hill on the highway, she had her camera. It was kind of wiggling, unfortunately, but she got, I don't know if it was cube shape or whatever, right over our property. And unfortunately, she didn't have the camera very stable, and it kind
Yeah.
of went in and out and everything. But if it is what it is, and what it looked like on the camera, I don't think it was a conventional aircraft of any type. And she said it was right over, and she was actually called somebody and told them, "Can you see it too?" or whatever, as she was driving along, So that was back about 2 months ago. She sent us the video anyway of it. But the Hudson Valley is just loaded with these megalithic type sites.
Right.
Dutchess, Westchester, Putnam, and back in the early 80s, they had the big flap down there.
Yeah.
And one of my colleagues was a pilot, and he actually made, I think, Newsweek, it might have been on Time. He got a lot of ribbing from it, but he was one of the crews that saw the UFOs over the Hudson Valley, that big flap,
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and he was, people kind of, ribbed him a little bit on that and everything, but I think nowadays with the Pentagon release, people won't be doing that quite as
People
much.
becoming more accepting.
A little bit more,
hopefully.
I think, yeah. There's something out there for sure, yeah. But our site's unusual, and it does attract everything, and maybe, the UFO thing, I know Ancient Alien did us 3 years ago. They showed the Hudson Valley, they got a Gunchewamp, and then did us, and they brought that whole thing in about
Yep.
these sites attracting maybe UFO. That's one of their, theories they had,
And by the way, the snowshoeing, you have snowshoes there for children as well?
Yeah. We
Oh,
have
that's
little
wonderful.
ones, and some of them have like little tracks, like bear tracks on them, all the way up to adults. We do stay open 7 days a week during the winter, as of right now.
Oh, good.
And we do have snowshoes for, people can come in and they can rent them, and then they go up. And we have about 3 more miles of snowshoe trails due to a forestry project. So we have a few, several miles of trails, and
That
they're all
sounds
marked.
like fun.
We have a map we give you, and,
Yeah.
and Saturday nights, if the weather's good, we have done candlelight snowshoeing. We have about 1.25 mile trail, put candles on it. We have hot chocolate in the building,
What
But
fun.
I would say the last one we did was almost 5 years ago, because since then it's been raining on Saturdays, and the snow melted, and we had to cancel all of them,
Oh, jeez.
But they were a lot of fun when we do them. We've been doing them since the late 90s.
Well,
I
that's
think.
really neat.
So snowshoeing in the winter, yeah.
So the other reason for going to this site is because of the significance of it, because it does have all kinds of astronomical alignments and so forth. But what I wanted to get to is, L.A. Marzulli has come to Dennis's property and Pat's property and interviewed Dennis and interviewed Kelsey about one of his discoveries. And what Kelsey discovered, I think, is really phenomenal, important for people to know that this site is truly significant, that it's not only 4,000 years old, it might even be older than that. because there is a lot of question as to like how old Giza is. Because remember when Robert Schoch did the experimentation with the water running on the Sphinx, and he said that it had happened long before. Because there had been heavy rains, I guess more than 10,000 years ago, so the Sphinx is at least 10,000 years old, according
So
to
you
him.
looked at it from a geological dating kind of thing, with the weathering and everything on the rocks.
So there may be some mismeasurements on the ages of some of these sites. But anyway, getting back to what Kelsey discovered, if you could run over what his methodology was and what he did discover.
Yeah, he was in college at the time, 2012. It was, I think it was in between semesters. He had a break, and he was just taking Google.
He couldn't stop thinking, right?
Yeah, he's always doing something, and he's kind of has an engineering, he went into school for engineering and an engineering mind, but he's always looking at things like that. And so he took Google Maps, Google Earth, and he went on Google Earth, and he just started going out on some of the astronomical alignments. Back in the 1970s, people were thinking the same thing. Maybe on some of these astronomical alignments, there's other sites, right on the alignment, miles away. And back then, they didn't have Google Earth, Google Maps, or any of that, so they had to get in a car, take a topographical map, and go out and see if there's anything there. You couldn't go down with satellite imaging and all that stuff back then, So they were already on that going back in the 70s. But Kelsey just did it on his own, and
he also said he wanted to see if there was a direct line of sight over your house.
Yeah,
I think that was the first thing that got him
going.
He did.
Yeah, he was looking at that, that's for sure. And over where he was living at my dad's house at the time. My dad passed away in 2009, and my son was living there. And the alignment went right by the house. So that's right, he did do the north, and that's a north alignment.
Okay.
And decided to look at a couple of the other alignments. And he took the summer solstice sunrise alignment. And he took that, and it runs northeast, and he just took it over, goes by Atkinson, New Hampshire, goes across, I think Hampstead, it continues right across New Hampshire. And there are some cairns along that way, the piles of rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, because of the other thing that he found, we never got back to really paying attention to that. But he took the line across New England, basically, past Nova Scotia, over the ocean. And he just said, well, I'll just keep on going with this line and see where it goes.
It was going in a northeasterly direction,
right? Yeah, and it was on because it was Google Earth, so I followed the curvature of the Earth and everything. And it goes into England. He goes, oh, that's interesting. And he's been to Stonehenge a few times over there. And he said, well, that's kind of interesting. In the southern part of England, kind of near Stonehenge. And then as he stopped there and he just started changing the scale and looking at it and blowing it up, all of a sudden Stonehenge appears, and it appears right underneath that line, And as he changes the scale again, you could see Stonehenge itself, the imaging of Stonehenge, And notice that the alignment goes right through one of there's 5 trilithons. I think a couple of them are damaged today where the tops have fallen off.
But there are at least 3 of them still standing.
Yeah, 3 of them I think still standing. We've been there. It's been a while since I've been back there. But it went right through one of the ones that's complete, and it's still standing. And it went right through the center of it, dead through the center of it. So he had to go back and try it a couple times because he was kind of in disbelief, I think. And so that was 10 years ago this year, this spring. That caught the attention of a couple people from America on Earth, with Scott Walters. And they changed their shooting schedule for the year and put us, I think we became the number 6 show. We were going to be later. They were going to do us later on. And they just had to do it, So they came down.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they came down on the summer solstice, and they shot it specifically because summer solstice, and that's the stone that goes with the alignment to Stonehenge. And it was so weird. It was, even if it's coincidental, I'm not coincidental, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And it was 3 years after my dad died. I said, no matter what it is, it's cool. And just to think, if you had Superman vision, you could see around the world, this line goes right through Stonehenge,
Yeah.
I don't see how that could be coincidence.
I know, yeah. I mean, we try to think of all the possibilities, the devil's advocate and all. Yeah. But my dad, I think, would have been blown away because we've been looking at that stone since the early 70s. The very first one we cleared was a winter solstice sunset, the opposite, 1965. Got the first photographs in 67. But that particular alignment we opened up in the early 70s, and we noticed the stone is not symmetrically shaped like an arrowhead. It has a point off to the left with a slope side. And it slopes, I think, 45 degrees, whatever. And when we opened up the clearing to the horizon, a few miles distance, all of a sudden we noticed is the horizon, it's a notch formed by, I guess, 2 hills intersecting. And the shape of the horizon with the notch was the same as the top of the rock. So it was kind of wow, is that something that was intentional? Is that another one of these coincidences, when people disagree with you, they call everything a coincidence, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, particularly in astronomy, you know, they don't like it. Well, it's just a freak. It works over the stone, but so what? You know, it's like, well, we got 57 alignments today with the sun, moon, and stars. That's the number we know now, 57. We started out in 65 looking at the winter solstice, sunset. So there's a lot of coincidences there, you know. But when you see an alignment, you have to have a foresight and backsight, like a gun sight. And your backsight's the closest when you're standing behind, and then you got your foresight. And then if you have a horizon with a dip or a notch, like we have there, then you're standing here looking
3
at this stone, the sun, moon, or star, whatever, and then you're looking at the notch, and they all line up perfectly. And then the sun rises 90 degrees to the slope of the stone and the notch, you know, on the first day of summer. It's off slightly due to the Earth's tilt. There's a little tilt going on. It's a 41,000 year cycle. And that way you can actually date when the stones were set up. That's great. You know, the heavens did that for us, or whoever. But then there's a 26,000 year precession of the equinoxes,
Right.
which changes our pole star. We mentioned Thuban,
Right.
4,000 years ago being the pole star. Today it's Polaris. So you got the 2 cycles going on, plus there's a little wobble going on top of that. So to see that alignment, now in Europe they call those little notches or little things horizon features. And they incorporated them into alignments up in Scotland and other places. So
Features, is there
a horizon feature. It's
Features,
like
okay.
a feature could be just a little dip. It could be a peak. You know, something that's a little significant you're looking at. So a little valley's good. You know, the sun will come up in the valley,
Yeah.
and then your foresight, backsight, and you're standing there. So something like that. And the further away they are, the more accurate the alignment is.
You know, when you first mentioned that, I thought, well, you know, you can draw a straight line between 2 different points and you can say it lines up. So I thought there's got to be something more significant in saying, yeah, it lines up. And then I realized once you spoke about it more, that they're astronomical alignments, that they're not just nothing. They're very significant.
Yeah.
So go on from there. What
Yeah, I
else
mean,
did you
in order to have
discover?
an alignment, you have to have at least 2 points. Otherwise, you really have nothing, you know.
Right.
We've heard that. We got so many stones up there that you can make your birthday or any day of the year. Well, I suppose that's true, but we're looking at stones that were quarried off the bedrock, and they're shaped kind of like arrowheads and stood on their ends. We call them monoliths, you know.
Yep.
And for the most part, they're standing. Probably 60% of them are still standing. Some are fallen, and they range in height. And a couple feet are buried below the soil, anywhere from about 6 to 9 feet in height, you know, roughly.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest ones have fallen over, unfortunately, you know. But they do align with the sun, moon, and stars, and so it's a calendar site. And in the early days, they wanted to probably track migrations of animals, both in the water, on the land, and in the air. Later, when agriculture, you want to know when to plant the seed, when to harvest it. And then they made all these religious ceremonies around all of these days, because we have the 4 seasons, and we have days in between called cross-quarter days, which some of them we celebrate today. We don't know it, but they're cross-quarter days.
So they're like February 1st,
Yep.
May 1st,
Yep.
August 1st, and November 1st.
You get them all.
And those
Yep.
are according to the ancient calendar, the beginning of the new seasons.
They are the beginning of the seasons.
Okay.
And you know, when you get to summer solstice, we call it the first day of summer.
Which is
but
actually the middle, isn't it?
They call it the midsummer solstice. I'm like, why would they call it middle if it's a beginning? Well, originally in ancient calendars, May 1st is the beginning of summer. By June, you get your midsummer solstice.
That's
in August.
amazing.
And Lammas is like the beginning of fall, you know, and then by fall, which is coming up now, it'd be kind of like a mid-fall
Yeah.
equinox. November 1st, All Saints' Day, the day after Halloween, would be Samhain by the Celts. But I went to Mesa Verde in 1990, and we were there just recently, too. And they had the cross-quarter days there, too. I was rather shocked. I didn't know that. I don't know why I was totally shocked, but since you don't read about it when you read the literature before getting there, but they had the quarter days aligned, but they had the cross-quarter like they did in Europe, you know, same kind of thing in Mesa Verde.
You know, there are so many skeptics that try to say that the hill is just a bunch of rocks, and that, you know, somebody like a Mr. Goodwin, who owned it at one point, had this, particularly the ceremonial center, cleaned up and then renovated. But he wasn't capriciously placing the stones. He was using the foundations of the walls that were already there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But even so, beyond that, that was just the central ceremonial area. He was not messing with the stones out in the large circle.
That's a good point. Some of that land he didn't even own. He owned 20 acres. And
Oh,
some of the alignments,
okay.
it was on other property, too, and it was all woods out there.
Yeah,
He was aware that there were walls and stones out there, but it wasn't
he didn't
until
realize
really-
the significance, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we have photographic evidence of what he did on the main site, which is about 1 acre, and then the watch house, which is separate from that, you know, down the hill a little ways.
Yeah.
But you know, 1920, we have 4 photographs taken by the same photographer. The pictures are all numbered. and that shows the east-west chamber, the sacrificial table, the oracle chamber, and the patio area. So 4 different views of the site from 1920. That's 16 years before he visited the site and 17 years before he bought it and started
Yeah.
doing rest. But we have 1935 pictures from the Haverhill Gazette, and we're in the town of Haverhill, with Reverend Ward standing there. And you can see the whole site in the background. And that's a year before Goodwin ever knew about the site.
Yep,
or
so he
came.
didn't mess with that. You know,
No.
that was already there in situ.
And his right-hand man who showed him the site, who owned the Upton Chamber, which is now open to the public in Upton, Massachusetts. Amazing structure.
I've heard of that, yeah.
He was a professional photographer, so as soon as he showed, actually he brought Goodwin to Hopkinton, Mass. To a chamber. He brought him to Acton, Mass. And Goodwin was from Hartford, so Goodwin made his way up. He showed him those, and he goes, I got to show you the North Salem site. And that's where they came up in 36 to see our site. But Malcolm was a professional photographer, and we have just about all of his glass slides, negatives, and prints he took over the years.
Good.
And he rented a plane he loved flying, so he'd go up, rent a plane, and take aerials. So we have a site, a lot of pictures from those 2 others, Upton, Acton, Hopkinton, Raymond, New Hampshire, a lot of Raymond. That was kind of a big complex, but our site too. Right at the beginning, he started clicking
It's
away.
all documented is the
Before
point.
Goodwin moved, and then what they did is they cleaned up the debris, and he says if a stone is near a wall within 3 feet, it probably belongs back on the wall.
Yep.
So you can see before and after pictures. So anybody say, well, Goodwin built everything, I've heard that. I
Yeah.
actually heard somebody from one of the research groups said to one of my friends through Facebook, it was a group, well, it's known that the site was built in 1962 by the owner. So wait a minute, what? We opened it in 1958. My dad built it in 62. It's like, what? And she acted so adamant and so knowledgeable. It's
knowledgeable,
like
yeah.
It was totally
Unquestionable.
incorrect, not even close to the point, you know. Another guy from New York, very well known, he was in the National Geographic, and in the New York Times in 1989, a syndicated thing, What is America's Stonehenge? He basically said it was built by the owner in 1927. That's 2 years before my dad was born and open to the public. It was open in 58, and my dad wasn't born till 29, so I don't know how he built it in 27. That's the sort of stuff we see once in a while, too.
Yeah,
It's
the
so
discrediting
inaccurate.
stuff is so
And these are professionals.
frustrating.
I mean, yeah, this guy's well-known.
So-called professionals, huh?
Yeah, he's from SUNY, State University of New York, and well-known. You see, I think he's passed away since. I'm like, why would he do that?
I know.
I mean, what's his credibility?
So to emphasize credibility here, so after Kelsey discovered that, you went on to make more alignments. You discovered more alignments,
Yeah.
including the 4 Chaco Canyon, Teotihuacan, Machu Picchu, and the Canary Islands.
Yeah,
So would you explain what the significance of that is?
Well, yeah, after Kelsey found that, we decided to try Google Earth, and he gave me a little bit
See what
of...
we can find.
Yeah, and the young generation, they're great at that. So he just kind of gave me some pointers on how to use Google Earth, and do So I just drew out some lines, and it looks like the true south alignment goes through Machu Picchu. And I asked people listening too to check it out on Google Earth just to make sure. And then, Teotihuacan's a winter solstice sunset alignment. Chaco Canyon's on the equinox sunset, 4 collinear alignments. So there's 4 points that make that alignment, and then it goes out to Chaco. It goes to Pueblo Bonito at Chaco Canyon in the big
it
D shape.
does?
Yeah, we were just there 3 years ago. We were there about this time. The sunrise that same day will go through the Canary Islands and their pyramids there. They're really cool. I didn't know they
There's
even
step
existed.
pyramids
Yeah,
there?
truncated pyramids. But the August 1st, the cross-quarter day sunrise goes across, and it goes to the Great Pyramid of Cheops. And that one there I want to double check, but I checked it a couple times. I like to triple and even do it more times just to make sure that I have the alignment, because you're off just a tiny bit, you can miss Egypt altogether from that distance. But it goes right through the Great Pyramid, and every time I tried it, went through the Great Pyramid of Cheops.
And what did you say the connection is with Giza? They call it the Giza
Well,
necropolis.
it's the Giza Plateau with the 3 pyramids, and the biggest one is where that alignment goes right through the center of it,
And what is the astronomical alignment
Oh,
for
August
that?
1st. Yeah,
August
August 1st,
1st.
Lammas. Yeah,
Okay.
the beginning of fall, and that's one of the cross-quarter days.
And what was the significance? Like, if you continue the line from America's Stonehenge, it went through Beirut and continued on, but north and south of that line was the giant circle in Israel, and
Yeah.
then beneath it, or
Yeah.
I think that was south of it. And the north side is Baalbek.
I think Baalbek, one of the Phoenician cities, Baalbek. And Baal, the sun god,
Yeah.
And that's such an amazing site over there. I haven't been there. I've been as far in that direction as Rhodes, but
But they're equidistant from that
Yeah.
imaginary line, which is
Well,
strange.
LA's got something coming up when he'll be here at the end of the month, 27th and 26th, I think he's coming up. And that line actually goes through one of the big mountains in Israel. And
Oh,
that's where
does
the
it?
watches supposedly came down.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to steal his
Well,
thunder. He may get mad at me.
We can figure it out ourselves.
But, you know, it's
Yeah.
one of the biggest in Israel anyway. And Kelsey kind of verified that about a couple weeks ago for him.
Wow.
And again, people should check, because all of us, we're not, without fault when we do things or make mistakes. So, but he did it a couple times. He's like, yeah, it does, so,
Well, what do you think about what Fritz Zimmerman had to say? And he said it to L.A. Marzulli, that America's Stonehenge was the axis mundi, meaning it was the center of the earth. Or, I don't know, what do you think? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got America's Stonehenge, so which one was built first?
Right.
And do you suppose that maybe UK's regular Stonehenge, do you suppose that it also has those same radiating lines of significance that America's Stonehenge has?
Yeah, I've seen maps with that. Yeah, there's maps that have lines radiating out from Stonehenge connecting other places, I'm trying to think. I think that's on one of the lines that Alfred Watkins 100 years ago, the old straight track with Alfred Watkins, the ley line, where Old Sarum and where the Salisbury Cathedral, I've been to all of those places, and Stonehenge, and I think Avebury, they all, and there's others too that are all on that one line there, But
Okay.
but now if you look at more modern maps that people have done, and the computer generated, the lines from Stonehenge I think go all over the place too. They make a lot of
So 1
connections.
minute.
We got about a minute and a half.
Okay, so does it look to you like maybe America's Stonehenge was contemporary to UK Stonehenge, or do you think it was probably built a little later?
Maybe a little later. Stonehenge goes back almost 5,000 years. Took
That's
15
what they say, but
Yeah.
it could be even more.
It might be older, yeah. They say it took
Yeah.
1,500 years to build stage 1, 2, 3 ABC kind of thing, and different cultures. I think it was the Windmill Hill, Wessex, and Beaker people, they say. Maybe the order might be out I just gave you, but our site might date to 4,000 years according to some of the data we have from the astronomical alignments in the carbon. We did 12 carbon dating starting in 1967, but there is a date too on the hill that dates back 7,400 years.
Right, you mentioned
Yeah,
that.
and,
Yeah, well, that was occupation, right, from the fire pit?
From a
wasn't
fire
it?
pit out in the North Stone. It didn't seem that it wasn't next to a structure that could be dated, but it shows human activity going back the
Right.
Middle Archaic time period.
And it could have been
into-
Native
yeah.
American, or it might have been
Right, yeah,
something
it
else.
probably, yeah, very, very likely it was, yeah.
So do you suppose that Fritz would be accurate in calling maybe UK's Stonehenge the center of the earth as well, or another center
Oh, we
point?
have to get Fritz here to talk about that. I mean, our site does have all
He
those
didn't
radiating.
talk much.
Yeah, well, the lines, yeah, we'll have to see if we can get them, but maybe LA will bring them back out. We can ask them about that. But LA will have a lot of that information too. But he put us as
Yeah.
the center because of all the lines radiate all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen maps of other sites too that lines go out, too, in European sites like Stonehenge, for instance, I'm trying to think what shows have been
We
on.
are just about at the bottom of the hour.
Oh.
So,
Okay, well, my point was real quickly that American
Wow.
Stonehenge has a lot of significance. It's not just a pile of rocks,
Right.
you know?
that's right, that's right.
Alrighty then.
So on that note, we will be back in just a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome back to Edge of Reality TV. And tonight's guest is Dennis Stone, the owner and president of America's Stonehenge in North Salem, New Hampshire.
Welcome back, Dennis.
Welcome back, Dennis.
No, thank you for
We were
having me
hoping
on
you'd
this
come
evening.
back.
No, thank you. I always
Actually,
love
he
to-
didn't leave. He's been sitting there all this time.
That's
Oh,
right.
is that what
yeah.
it is? We're afraid you're going to leave the
We
show.
have him wired to the chair.
I think I'm super glued.
Well, we were talking about the astronomical alignments that are evident in America's Stonehenge, and I wanted to take that just a little bit further. This supposedly was done 4,000 years ago, so this was way beyond the knowledge of what supposedly they call it primitive man, although I think there's been various high civilizations during Earth's history. But apparently we didn't have the knowledge of trigonometry and geometry to figure into figuring this out. And there's one other enigma that we're faced with, which is the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle, which is evident at America's Stonehenge, but also at the Octagon Mound in Ohio, as well as the Serpent Mound in Peoples, Ohio. So, when you were talking to L.A. Marzulli, they had some ideas on this, and they were reflecting on the Book of Enoch. And the mention was made that no way could someone from the ground determine these distances because they're just way too far and there's no way to measure them from the ground. So they felt that the information was coming from up above. And the Book of Enoch indicates that, well, the whole series was about the Nephilim, right, and following the Nephilim. So were the Nephilim real? Were they the fallen angels? And were they the ones that imparted this information? What do you think?
Well, I think it's an interesting theory, and LA's been to our place a number of times, of course, and he's coming back out very shortly, as you were talking about.
Yeah.
And he'd be a great guest to really go over that. It would be kind of neat to get him on, and talk to him directly about, this whole thing. Because he has more, like, in-depth knowledge. He's been studying this for probably decades now.
Yeah, he's quite the researcher.
Yeah,
I know.
and I get on the periphery of it, kind of. I try to kind of learn as much as I can of different areas. There's so many different areas of this, whether it's astronomical, paranormal, archaeological, geological, even inscriptions and stuff like that. It's, I'm kind of many different things we get involved with, but probably not a master at any of them, But I think it is interesting. And LA, again, he has done, I think, 7 videos, or we're in a couple of them. And he does discuss this whole thing about the technology, the knowledge that would be required to do this kind of thing. And I've been to some of these sites. I used to fly by Newark all the time. It's one of the biggest earthworks in the world. And it is a lunar observatory, And 2025 should be the next alignment. So at our site, at Newark, also at Carnac in France, and there are a number of other sites across the nation where people will be standing there watching the moon rise and the moon set in that particular year. 9 years later, we'll be watching a different event. But yeah, it seemed like these people had knowledge that is more than that we would give them credit for. We used to look back at the past kind of with biasness, saying, well, they're simple, they're not well educated, they didn't have the capability of doing these kind of things. And so, we're finding out some of the things that they built were pretty sophisticated, astronomically, mathematically, and just in the engineering of building these sites too. The stones
are huge.
Huge, yeah, moving them and then positioning them in precise places for some of the, stellar alignments or lunar alignments or the solar alignments, that kind of thing. And every time we turn around, there's something like Göbekli Tepe showing up that should not be there. It's almost 12,000 years old.
Yeah.
We thought they were in the new Stone Age at that time, and they would never ever. They were hunter-gatherers. They would never be able to do that. So all of a sudden, you have this kind of like this site like Göbekli Tepe appear, full-blown technology. Where did that come from? So I think LA's kind of into that. All of a sudden, this stuff comes. And it doesn't show anything from simple to complex. It just shows up as a very complicated site. Yeah. So I find it very fascinating. But again, when LA comes out in a couple weeks, I'll pump him for information. I hope that you can get a chance to meet him and more precisely ask him some of these questions, about that.
Yeah.
His videos are very good, and they explain a lot that, as you know from seeing some of that.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Yeah. So the Book of Enoch does indicate that creatures that had a celestial view of the earth were aware of these other alignments, but also to the 18.6 year lunar cycle. Okay, well, I also wanted to touch on the paranormal at the site, because there's still a lot of energy from so many things that have happened there. When you get so many people coming for thousands of years, there's bound to be stuff that happens. Oh, and before I forget it, the testing of the dirt underneath the stone walls, have you got anything conclusive about the age when those stones were laid, particularly the walls and whatnot? Or?
Yeah, actually it was done 2 years ago on my granddaughter's birth, which was Sunday. They did it 2 years ago. University of Washington, Dr. Feathers, and the latest NERA, New England Antiquities Research Association Journal, had an interview by one of the NERA members, and I just read it, and it's mostly technical. How does optically stimulated luminescence, dating work, and it went about 4 pages of that, all the technical stuff, and he mentioned like 2 sites. But what we didn't see is the results of 44 samples taken from New Hampshire all the way to Virginia on some of these stone ruins. So we're waiting for the results at our site. And there are, I believe, 22 more other sites that we're waiting, results of. It used to take 5 years to get them processed,
Wow.
5 years. And now they're down to about 2 years. So we should be getting the results of that. And then what do the results mean, So at our site, they took 4 cores. It's about $1,000 per core. 2 of them were rock samples and 2 were sediment. The 2 rock samples, one of them they're still trying to test. They're having some difficulties trying to get whatever data they need to collect from it. And the other one I think they just gave up on, I think. The other 2 are sediment, they were dirt. And basically the preliminary results of those were both pre-colonial and one of them was pre-Columbus time. It doesn't mean the structure was built in, it just means the dirt came in, it built up, it saw the light of day last time at that date. But
Yeah.
the wall may have been sitting there and the dirt was building up next to it over
Yes.
eons, And the roof of the oracle chambers where another one came from. So one was a wall and one was a roof. It had 24 inches of dirt and they tried to get a core near the bottom, the oldest dirt. And again, the dirt came after the structure. And I think the dirt was around 1400. So it wasn't the Paddy family, the shoemakers. It wasn't
Yeah.
colonial. It's before Columbus even came to the Americas, So, but that's a minimum date. It could have been sitting there for hundreds and hundreds of years or many, many years.
When you
before
think
that.
about the standing stones that are there, they go into the earth.
Yeah.
So they would probably have the oldest, I would think, because do you know exactly when the walls did come? Was it at the same time that the stones were placed in the ground? We don't really know that.
Yeah.
But that would, I would think, be the oldest reading. And
Well, if they do some more testing like that, and I think there is a push to do more of that, is to do some of the walls and then also some of the monoliths and see if they're contemporary. It seems like maybe could have been built at the same time, but that's not for certain.
yeah,
And we do have a University of Connecticut Doctor of Archaeology showing up in October. I think it's around the 25th or something like that. And he's already looking at some sites similar to ours in Connecticut. And he's not dismissing them, from what I understand, as all farmers' constructions. Serpentine walls with windows. And
long before that.
Yeah, this is a ceremonial site,
Yeah.
I think. It's not a living place. It's not a farmer's field or
Yeah.
farmer's, house or anything like that, and
So we can scratch that.
yeah, I don't think, farmers are very practical, they're very hardworking, they weren't afraid to build stone walls. Most of their walls are pretty linear, field clearing, stock fences, and boundaries. These walls, they turn, they twist, they bend on top of
Yeah,
our house.
serpentine
They have standing
and-
stones, monoliths we talked about, they have
Yep.
stones like this, which we call orthostats, a longitudinal axis, big flat stone stood on its edge. And then others are stacked up like this, almost like they call them lacework. They're all stacked up like that, sometimes with stones at odd angles in the walls, very artistic. And farmers
So-
just put up field stones and put them up
Right.
there, and you know what a farmer's wall looks like,
Yep. So the others kind of, the ones that had a different shape to the tops of them, kind of represented the undulation of like a snake.
Some of them very distinct too.
Yeah.
And if you look at them, it's not where the wall fell apart, because where's the rocks, number one, that fell.
Right.
But also you'll see some of the stones in the hump, they're actually tilted up.
Yep.
I mean, that to me really, sealed it for me. It's like,
Really deliberate.
yeah, they actually deliberately, stack the stones so they make a hump like that. And some of the
Yeah.
stones are angled up, it's like, not all of them, but that's the way some of them are. It's like,
Yeah.
that was intentional,
Makes you think.
like that.
So the paranormal now. Willie and I were there investigating.
Yep.
We had some really interesting experiences, and one of them was Willie's brother had brought a compass with him. So you want to talk about what Jim experienced?
Yeah, as we were investigating down by the table, he was up by the watch house there, and he had this strange thing happen with his compass. It started spinning in circles, and then it kind of stopped and flooded and started spinning back in the other direction. Now, in paranormal terms, if you go by Einstein's theory that energy cannot be created or destroyed, then in the paranormal world, they figure, well, when a person dies, their energy is still around. And so, if we can measure that electromagnetic energy, then, perhaps we're picking up on a spirit.
Yeah, it might be an indication of spirit.
And so, people use EMF meters, which is electronic,
Yeah,
thingy there.
electronic,
Yeah.
magnetic.
electromagnetic.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah.
Electromagnetic frequencies.
But obviously those can be influenced by, like wiring or, any type of electrical in the
We have
area.
a chain link
Which
fence
there
up
was
so-
none.
Yeah, there was none anyway, but,
Yeah.
so it's kind of an old school thing, using a compass instead, which would not be affected by electricity like that. And, the theory is that if the compass goes off the magnetic north and points in a different direction and maybe follows it, maybe you have a spirit in your
Walking
presence.
around. But this was
But in this
spinning.
case, it was strange. It wasn't just off. It was spinning wildly in circles.
And then it reversed itself, and then it would hover like for a quarter of the compass,
Yeah.
and then it would wildly spin again.
Oh,
And so it could be picking up on a spirit, or it could be a portal of
Or a
some
portal.
I think you sent me
But-
the video on that. and that
Yeah,
was
we
really-
do have a
Yeah.
video
Yeah.
on that.
Pretty
Um,
amazing.
Yeah, it was really very, very active and spinning too,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
remember, yeah.
And
And,
portals can
and
come and
also,
go.
along with it, another investigator, Sandy, at the same time that the compass was doing this, she heard footsteps in the trees and saw a shadow. So, and it wasn't any of us, because we were all down by the table.
Like a shadow person in the
Yeah.
distance, and she was hearing the crunches of the twigs.
So maybe maybe it was a spirit, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was a portal, but something very strange.
Those two things, interesting, yeah.
In the Oracle Chamber, there were three of us on three separate occasions who we were trying to film one of the niches in there, one of the little closets. And I was the first one because I had been there before them. I had 6 black pictures, and I thought my camera was broken. And then I turned it just slightly away from it, and the camera started working. Mary Melanson came, she had the same problem. She goes, oh no, she said, I think my camera's broken. And she turned away and she got other pictures. And there was the other Mary, took pictures, her camera wouldn't work. So that is very unusual, where the camera just doesn't register and you get black shots. And it was at one of those niches in the Oracle Chamber, which we feel is where they maybe put sacrificial goods, or maybe the tools of ritual tools. So there was some interesting energy in at least one of those niches. And the other thing was when we were having a seance, the day that we were there doing the investigation, Mary Melanson was connecting with a Native American chief, as well as Mr. Patty, who was one of the owners there. So we feel at least 2 of those entities are hanging around and giving us information. And during that whole time, we recorded it. And as I'm playing it back, there were several things on there. I hear drumming, I hear wood knocks. There were 2 instances of gunshots at 9 o'clock at night. That kind of mystifies me, because where were those gunshots coming from? Who would be hunting at night? There were gunshots. And they were, what's the direction of the summer solstice? Okay, that's northeast. It was northwest. That's where the gunshots were coming from.
Interesting.
Very odd.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably about it for my experiences up there. So the wood knocks might even be an indication of, a Sasquatch being around. That's possible.
Oh, I've heard it, yeah, that kind of thing before, yeah.
And then before we left, about 10 o'clock, me, Mary, and Stacia, we all heard kids giggling. So you had a similar experience. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was about probably a little over a month ago, I think. And I
Yeah,
was
really recent.
Yeah, we live on the northwest side of the property, and we got our own acreage back in '85, built a house there so we could be close to the property. And I was walking up my little Nova Scotia duck-toling retriever. Her name is Sky, and she likes to walk up there on the property at night. It's kind of nice exercise. She really enjoys it, and kind of keep an eye on the place too. But as
Yeah.
you're walking up there towards the summer solstice sunset, we're walking on the alignment. And the trees are all cleared, of course, right out to the boundary
looks
there. And I was
beautiful.
probably about 500 or 600 feet. I'm walking towards a stone, and
So
as I
you
got
were coming up from the bottom of the hill to the...
yeah, it was an incline, up to the monolith, and when I got up there, maybe about 300 feet from the stone or so, I started hearing voices, and it sounded like kids talking, and maybe some giggling, but I could hear it pretty clearly, And I'm like, I wonder where that's from, It seemed to be in front of me, so it would have been kind of towards the east, southeast of where I was standing, kind of. And I thought, well, maybe they're on top of the hill, near the main site. And as I'm walking up there, I can still hear them. I'm like, well, if there's kids up there at this time of night, they're trespassing, and they're probably up to no good, perhaps. And, do I have to call my wife and then maybe call the Salem police, because there should not be anybody up there. We don't want vandalism. We don't want people trespassing.
Right. You don't want people to get hurt either.
And we don't want people getting hurt up there too, and then blaming us for it. So as I'm getting closer to the summer solstice, still going up the hill, all I can see is a stone. I can't see beyond it, because of the hill, the curvature of the hill. And as I got closer to it, I could still hear the voices. And I finally get it to the summer solstice sunset monolith. And I go through the wall, and I'm looking around, and it's fairly flat on top of the hill, pretty flat. And you can see hundreds of feet. And I'm looking around expecting to see a bunch of kids, either in the main site, which is about an acre, or maybe out near the Astronomical Alignment somewhere, to my right.
Playing.
And I'm looking around, and the other thing is my dog is very sensitive. She'll bark at everything and anything, She's very, very much into barking at, just barking. She loves barking at things, And she didn't, in whatever it was, she didn't even pay attention to whatever it was whatsoever. And I was kind of like, why isn't she barking?
It is because dogs are often sensitive to the paranormal too.
Yeah, and either way, paranormal or just real kids up there goofing around, and she would have been letting loose. She goes crazy. And whatever it was, I heard it, and apparently she didn't pay attention or whatever. And when I was up there past the summer solstice monolith going towards the site, I'm expecting still to find kids up there. And I went up towards the site, and I didn't see anybody. I didn't hear anything more. It was quiet up there after that. And I thought, well, that's very peculiar. Why am I hearing these?
Essentially, from when you were hearing them to when you got up there and looked around, they couldn't possibly
have disappeared.
have gotten out of your sight in that short
it wasn't
time.
like they might have saw me and hightailed it out of there. Probably would have heard them running anyway.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see them. They wouldn't have seen me. If they had heard my dog bark, they might have said, ooh, this is not good, and we'll get the heck out of here. I mean, that would have been another alert for them, No, I never saw anything. And but I do remember other people hearing children. I think part of your experiences. And then going back to Hans Holz's book, 1992, long before Columbus, with Ingrid Beckman and Nancy Abel and Ethel Myers, things like that. I think, and I haven't read that for a little while, but I believe there was some talk about hearing kids in there too. And you're much more,
yes, there was
good memory of that.
There was some spring ceremonies. There was a berry festival, and there was also they celebrated the corn harvest or planting the corn, which was about the same time. And there were ceremonies with children,
I remember,
like between 3 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
And then there's also another like fertility celebration where they celebrated their adolescence, going into adolescence.
The boys and then the girls. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was one
children,
in particular where they used younger children.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that you heard little ghost voices. And besides, the access to the site for these kids, it would have had to been on the other side of the site where the driveway and the fencing is. Because you've got most of that fenced off, and then the rest of it is all brush and woods.
Yeah.
It would be really difficult for little kids to go through there.
Yeah.
And why would they be out at that time of night?
Yeah, I just don't think they would have been up. The age of the kids sounded kind of young, and to be up there by themselves,
unlikely.
I didn't hear any adult voices, so it would have been unlikely that.
Yeah.
We just haven't seen that for years. I mean, real people up there after hours.
Yeah.
Probably since the '90s, thankfully, because they shouldn't be up there. I've caught people up there back in the '90s, and I walk up there back then and found actual real people up there. And I'm like, what are you doing up? Oh, I got up there one night, it was pitch black, and there were about 6 or 7 kids on that wooden platform, the astronomical platform. And I didn't have a cell phone at that time, that early time in the '90s. I mean, they might have been around, but I didn't have one. And I had to go back home and call the cops on them. I'm like, you guys got to get out of here. They're up there for no good. And this is pitch black.
Yeah.
So that's been years ago,
Yeah.
So whatever I experienced a month ago is rather strange. I just expected to go over the rise, see a bunch of kids running around, doing what kids do,
And that was
nothing.
That was your first paranormal experience at the Hill,
Whatever
right?
it was like, wow, it surprised me. And I don't know. I think about it once in a while, like, what was and where were these kids, Well, they should have been right there over the rise.
Wasn't that your first experience, unexplainable experience since you've owned the place?
That I can remember, Maybe
but
when
you
I was a
can
kid, I
remember?
had some things, But my dad, my dad was always interested in that, of course, because he met Hans Holzer. But my dad, I think he had a couple of experiences. But for me to say, tell you, and I just don't remember enough to even put it forth.
Sometimes families just don't discuss that. I do find that to be
I do have some
true.
family members, that just don't want
Yeah.
to talk about it at all. for whatever, private. They said it's a private thing. We just don't want to talk about it.
But you did know a person who had another experience up there.
Yeah, shape-shifting, I guess, yeah.
Shape-shifting.
Yeah, I was in the 90s, and actually a couple of people, and neither one of them actually, all I know is that they had was some a little bit of information, and then they won't talk about it again. So
And
for me,
that
yeah.
shape-shifting is an element of shamanism, Native American shamanism. I mean, most indigenous tribes and peoples or, root races have their own form of shamanism. And in particular, Native American, I don't want to say mythology, but their religious aspect does involve shape-shifting and acquiring information from the other side and so forth, so that supposedly they can morph from a human into an animal of their choosing. And I just find that amazing, because we do know that Native Americans were up there, and they did an awful lot of celebratory events up there, and got together like twice a year, particularly for the berry festivals, for one of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had a wigwam site found in the parking lot that dates to about 2,000 years old, the post moles. So about
neat,
500
yeah.
feet from the main site. That was found in the 90s by our archaeologist.
Oh, that's amazing.
She was president of the New Hampshire Archaeological Society. So she stayed with us for 32 years and just retired. But yeah, doing shovel test pits, and they found it down by, we have a little covered bridge now. It's in the
Yes.
vicinity. Well, right down there was a 30-foot diameter wigwam. All the post moles were there, all the little stains from where the poles once stood. And
She located that?
she located that, yeah, using what they call an STP. It's a 50-centimeter diameter hole, and they go down to what they call a pre-occupational level or bedrock,
Yeah.
and they stop digging. But it's a test pit to see if there's anything there. If there is anything, they will stop, lay out the meter squares, and they divide those into quadrants, and then they start scraping even more carefully.
So did they do that?
Yeah, they did that, and they didn't complete it, because, I mean, archaeology is so slow, with a
Tedious
toothbrush and
and
trowels, and
time-consuming.
yeah, and they did open enough of it to see the pattern. It was, it was round shaped. It
I
was,
didn't know that.
yeah, about 30 feet across, and then the two fire pits dated 2,000 years old and 1,700 years old, and they found grease from cooking still in the soil, and that can be carbon dated too. But they had just enough funds to do both carbon datings of the two samples from. So it might have been like a few hundred years they used that spot.
Yeah.
Across the parking lot towards our neighbor's house. On the other side of the parking lot, they found a cooking rack, and I think charcoal was found there too. That was not dated. I think they set it aside for future dates. So we have the parking lot area is probably a village, and below that, where it's wetlands, was a pond. So Native Americans are there. And then at the
Yeah.
Glacial Cliff Shelter in the 50s, we got the pottery. One bowl is this big in the display. It's Middle Woodland period pottery. So around 2,000, 2,500 years old. So that may have been a summer camp out there, getting the northwesterly breezes
Right,
across
because they
the
did migrate, with the
back
seasons.
and forth. Yeah, and the wigwam would have made a nice winter place to go to.
There's another thing, too, that I wanted to bring up. You
Excuse
had Dave Schrader with Hotzer Files there.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And they had some strange experiences, too,
Yeah,
didn't they?
yeah. They were there 2 years ago, yeah.
Has it been 2 years?
Yeah, and the
Oh my
show came out
gosh.
last year, basically. And
okay.
the David Schrader has another new show on with Cindy Kozer. It's on the
Right.
same channel, and I think it's on Sunday nights now. But the Holtz are in 2 years, and we were the second season.
So what they saw, I know that Cindy sensed, something really dark. I don't know what she was getting into, but it was Dave Schrader himself that saw beyond Cindy and saw a shadow person there,
Right,
right?
yeah,
They got it on film, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
yeah,
on the
she's-
show, I believe.
Yeah, I got to watch the show again. But they took 6 days to film it, or 6 days and nights. They were there
Yeah.
the whole week filming. And they did bring in Alexandra Holzer too, and I never met her, but I met her dad starting in 1970. And then Cindy Kozer is from up in Ashland, New Hampshire, I believe, and she's a New Hampshireite living in Colorado. So she never had been to our site. But
Yeah.
what they did is they used Hans Holz's camera, and so Alexandra brought it. She took photographs in the Oracle Chamber, and she saw her at the entrance. It looked like a profile of a person. In one frame, there's nothing, just a structure. The
Yep.
next frame, there's this, and I looked at it, I'm like, wow. It was like pure black profile of a human. It looks like a human. And then the next frame, there's nothing again.
Nothing there.
And then they got the voice. They got a voice too. And on
What
Friday,
was the voice? I didn't
well,
realize that.
yeah, that's why I have to watch the show again, because they actually asked the question, and this voice was answering the question. And this was on the reveal. So on Friday night, they revealed this to me. I interviewed with them Monday, and then the rest of the week we were supposed to stay away from them.
Yeah.
Even though we were running the business all week, you know.
Yeah.
And they did feed us every evening, which was nice. And they weren't supposed to make too much contact or knowledge with us. You know, they wanted to keep it pure, and which was they did that pretty well. I would talk to them, but they were just very, very standoffish, you know, to the end, and then they got friendlier. But on Friday, they did the reveal, and that's where they showed me that Alexandra, her dad's camera, what that took, and it was pretty like, wow, you know, if that's what it is, that's pretty amazing, you know, to me, you know. And then the voice, they did ask a question, and then the voice did answer it back. And that's,
Do you recall what the answer was?
that's what I was trying to remember on the way over, you know, because it's on Discovery Plus now, which
But
is
it's pretty clear, is that the
yeah,
point?
it was pretty clear. I think they
Okay.
had to play it back to me twice because I heard something and it caught me by surprise because it was kind of quick. And the second time I could, I can hear what they're saying, you know. And it was something to do with, I don't know if it was to do with ancient Phoenicians or whatever, but it's the Ancient Evil episode. It's either 12 or 13,
Well,
second season.
I'd like to comment on that the Phoenicians did come, and apparently there were several influxes of Phoenicians. Now, the Phoenicians sort of adopted a religious paradigm from the Anunnaki, which was actually Enki, and it was called the Brotherhood of the Snake. And it was, he was pro-human, and he wanted the people, the human people, to have esoteric knowledge. But it wound up sort of, I think it probably got kind of bastardized or whatnot, and it became the worship of the sun god Baal, because there was the stone, it was dedicated to Baal, that was found on your site.
Yeah.
So that particular religious paradigm involved some sacrifice, so there could have been some negative energy there.
Possible.
You
It's a
know?
ceremonial site, and sacrifice sometimes
Yep,
played a
when
part of
things
that.
happen.
Many different cultures, you know.
Yeah.
So the table, is it sacrificial? Is it an embalming table? Is it a birthing table? Or is it just a ceremonial table? That's one of those questions,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
But yeah, the Phoenicians did sacrifice. Other Celts did too, and
Yep.
Native Americans had their, you know. So especially the Aztecs too, you know, for sure, and the Mayans, you know.
The Aztecs, Incas,
So,
and Mayans, they all did some
Possibly in a
sacrificing.
solstice, something big happened there. You know, we don't know. You know.
Yep,
and
we
then
don't.
the oracle tube, they would have spoke through that, and maybe during that ceremony, people above would hear this, see this whole experience, and hear it too.
Yep.
With the oracle speaking to them. You know.
Can you think of anything else that, you know, of a paranormal nature that happened up there? I'm wondering if I'm forgetting something.
Not that I can think of, no. I
yeah.
think you pretty much covered it, and we are down to
1 minute?
just about 1 minute, yeah.
Okay. So I do know that one of the investigators, actually a husband and wife team, they kept sensing Native Americans on the periphery of the ceremonial center. And the whole time that we were doing the investigation in that area. So there's a lot of energy up there still. And I think maybe it comes and it goes, so there are days where it's more, you're more receptive to it. Maybe the weather conditions make it, I don't know, amplify it or whatever, so that you're more receptive to it. But I think there's always energy there. There's just a whole lot of history. Fascinating place to visit.
Yep, America's Stonehenge, a great place.
Yes. don't
You
say
want to
one.
go and visit, and how would they contact you? And
Yeah, we're open every day except for Thanksgiving and Christmas, the occasional blizzard.
Oh, you take a break, huh?
We try to, yeah. And then, but they can contact us through the website, stonehengeusa.com, and it has an email, it has a phone number, and there's a 12-minute video on our website, and there's also a free app download. So if they can't visit us for some
That's
reason,
nice.
you can actually do a complete virtual tour in your lazy boy at home. But if you take your smartphone and you load it and you walk around our site, it will take you on a complete tour, and it has text, it talks to you, and it has pictures as you're walking. And we give you a paper map in case your phone batteries die, which happened quite a bit up there too, for some unknown reason. We lose a lot of batteries up there. But
yeah, that's one of those paranormal things.
it's, you know, that's been brought up too with all the
is.
different professional and amateur people doing filming, and batteries dying left and right.
Yeah,
They have
we
a whole rack of
had
them. They're all-
batteries
cameras
dying
out.
last time
Yeah,
we
Yeah.
came
so
up,
you
yeah.
experienced it too.
Yeah, cameras went
We're always
bad.
laughing when it happens because it's just like, oh, there it is again, you know, the batteries are dead.
It took, what, three loads to get the camera to finally work when we were up by
Something
the,
like that. With
the
the-
North Stone. We almost weren't able
Does
to
that-
film because we couldn't get anything to work.
Even the guy doing a 12-minute video, he did Manchester, New Hampshire, one of the local
Really?
big stations in New Hampshire. they did their advertisements, so we hired him to do our 12-minute video and do some other things. And he's a tech guy. He came from a tech background. He goes, this is funny. It's got to be something down to earth, but I'm losing my batteries here left and right on my drone, on my cameras, and I'm losing sound, and the camera's not working. You know, it was just, he was laughing about it because but he goes, I'm an engineer. I have to look at this, you know, from that point of view. And there's got to be something here that's doing it. I don't want to get into the paranormal, he goes, but there's something funny about this place, yes. But anyway.
And of course, if
With
somebody is
that said.
just out driving in their car, the physical address is?
Yeah, so we're at 105 Haverhill Road in North Salem, New Hampshire. And you can actually just Google us, and your Google will take you right. Google Maps
you're
will take
there.
you right to our place. You know.
Okay, all right. Thank you
No,
very
thank
much,
you. Yeah.
Dennis,
Thank
It's
you.
always a
Dennis.
coming
joy.
and joining us
It
again.
is
Yeah, I always
so
enjoy talking to you.
informative, fun.
Yeah,
So thank you.
and you got to come back up and visit us again. So
Oh,
thank
we
you so
will.
Oh,
much.
absolutely.
We will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again from all of us. Yeah.
Oh, very well.
Okay. That is the show,
Another wrap.
and we will
Until
be
next
back
time.
next month. We guarantee
We
that.
will. Yep.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us.